Okay, so this is our first practical video, and I'm going to show you two things here. One is a little bit of info on installation, and then I'm going to show you initiating a data stream with an EEG device and the process of that using EEG notebooks. So the first thing in the documentation, software wise, as I just mentioned, will be installing MiniConda. Once you've run the installation, what I highly recommend, not essential, but I highly recommend, is for you to make a link so that you have the menu on your taskbar if you're in Windows, I guess on any operating system. But so basically find it in the Windows bar, right click, and then add pin to taskbar. Okay, now I've already done that here. So when I go down to my taskbar here, I have this little black thing. This is my Conda terminal. Okay, so this is the endpoint of your Conda installation, which doesn't take too long, but it's maybe kind of 10-15 minutes. So now I have the link, so I can start up a Conda terminal. So this is what you get, just a black box. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger so you can see it well. And what I've also already done, but I'll show you a brief version of, is I've set up the environment and the installed EEG notebooks. So I'm not going to do that in full now because that would be a bit boring for you to sit and wait for something to install, but I'll show you roughly what the process will be. You reference the instructions. The instructions say exactly what I'm just going to show you, and they're the correct source in case I make any errors on the fly here. But this is roughly the setup process once you've got your MiniConda installed from scratch. So you're going to create a Conda environment, such as, well, the name that I recommend you call your Conda environment is NTCS. It's useful when you create Conda environments to specify a few things. You need Conda to install and the Python version. This is what the instruction says. So for people who aren't familiar with this, when you're using Python, it's very useful, and essentially you kind of really need to be able to do this if you're going to do any level of research and coding work with Python. You need to use environments to manage your libraries, and an environment is just a kind of isolated little box within your Python software that doesn't get affected by what you might do in other boxes that are for different purposes, right? So effectively what we're doing here is we're defining a little box, a little environment that is specifically for our NTCS work. So we create an environment, Conda create, the name NTCS, and then these are things that I want Conda to install. I run that line. That will run quickly. That doesn't take too long, that first bit. And then once I have my environment, then the first thing that I do, so imagine now I've just kind of started from scratch. In fact, why didn't I just do that? So now I'm going to start from scratch. So again, I'll just bring up my terminal. You'll probably do this a few times as you go. Make that bigger for you again. So what you're going to be usually doing, because you're only going to do the installation once, is you're going to be loading that up, and then you're going to be doing the following. You activate your environment. So it was NTCS. Okay, so I have my NTCS environment. You see the only thing that's changed there is NTCS on the left hand side, but now I know I'm in my NTCS environment. Now in the instructions, what we're also telling you to do is install EEG notebooks. So I installed it in this folder here because this is where I put things, but you can decide where you install things. You might want to use exactly this, create subdirectories like this, but you might just want to install it at the base directory. That's up to you. But the way that you grab it first is you git clone that line. Okay, so effectively that's just a download command. There's a little bit more to it in terms of what Git does, which is a software version control system, but For present purposes, at least, it's just a download command that we can quickly run from the command line. I've already run that because when you run it, then you get your eeg-notebooks folder, and then when I go into my eeg-notebooks folder, all I have to do is type this pip install. And when I do that for the first time, that will take a little bit of time because it's going to download the dependencies. It'll take 10 minutes, 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes, depending on your internet speed and things like that. But it will download the dependencies, install them, and then you're good. Now, I mean, as you can see, I just ran that command, but I already have all of these things installed, so effectively it just confirms that it's already installed, and we're good to go. But there you go. That's the process in fast motion for the first few steps in the instructions, the installation steps. Now we're good. Now we're basically ready to roll on making EEG recordings and doing fun things. It wasn't that quick. So let's do exactly that. I'm going to show you. So first thing I want to do demo wise is show initiating a connection and doing a signal quality check. What we'll do then is I'll show you the process for running the experiment being a visual face and house processing task, so like looking at pictures, measuring brain activity. Both of them are really simple, but the signal quality check is simpler, and it's also the first step, so we'll start with that. I'm going to demo this with a Muse device because we use Muse devices a lot with eeg-notebooks, but they're also really, really simple and quick to use, so they're perfect for demos. I'll also do a quick show with the OpenBCI in a second and talk a little bit more about some of the other devices, but let's just talk about the Muse for a second. So Muse, 5 electrodes, 5 channels, so 2 there and there, which are basically go behind the ears, but we call them temporoparietal channels. They're actually conductive rubber, which is kind of cool. And then another 3 on the front there. Ding, ding, ding. The middle one you don't see because that's actually the reference, but these 2 at the front, these are left and right frontal ones. So basically we get 4 channels from a Muse. And this is the same for all 3 major Muse models, the 2016, the Muse S, and the Muse 2, which is what this is. So those are your options. Now, first thing I want to do is show you the command to start your stream, and then I'm going to put it on my head. So with Muse, first thing we need to do is turn it on. And you see, I hope the camera can see, we have this kind of flashing light thing. And it's going back and forth, which means it's in pairing mode. It's like waiting for a connection. And my Bluetooth is on the computer, which means that all I need to do now is type eeg-nb check sig qual -ed muse 2 _ bfn. Okay, so let me just explain that a little bit. So eeg-nb, that's the command line program, so that's just all of the command line programs for eeg-notebooks. Start with that. We have a set of command line programs that you just run in the NTCSP terminal once you've installed the software, that you can also run them in Python, which is more flexible but also requires you to know how to do Python stuff. So you don't need to know how to do Python stuff to use eeg-notebooks. You just need to be able to type things on a command line, which is really easy to do. So in this, all of NTCS, that's what you need to do. So there's no Python per se in NTCS. It's all command line usage. But if you're keen to do lots of Python, then there's plenty of scope for you to do that with eeg-notebooks, and you'll know what you're doing with that as you've gone through the process that I'm talking through right now. So eeg-nb, that means we're doing an eeg-notebooks thing. Then check sig qual. So this is our program for checking signal quality. -ed, that's EEG device, shorthand. Muse 2. is this Muse device, and then this underscore BFN. What does that mean? It means brain flow, and then N is native, as in native Bluetooth. So what you'll see when you're using eeg-notebooks is we for the Muse devices, we have a few different ways that you can define how the stream is, the data stream is being done. Actually 3. So you can either use BrainFlow native, which is this underlying software that we use called BrainFlow, but using your native Bluetooth driver, the one that's on your computer. There's BrainFlow BFB, BrainFlow Bled. Bled, B-L-E-D, is a dongle that you can get, so a kind of separate little USB dongle, and that is a different way of using BrainFlow. And then the third option is Muse, which is another third-party library that does a good job of streaming EEG data, and that also uses another piece of software called Muse LSL. So that's all going on in the background that you don't need to worry about, and I'm not going to talk much about that anymore, but that's what that little BFN means. So we're going to check our signal quality. So I typed that. Now take a look at the flashing light and take a look at what's going on the screen. Now the light is going to go from flashing, as in flashing back and forth, to solid. And when it does that, that basically means that BrainFlow's found its connection. So yep, I've got a solid thing there, and the info on the command line has told me that it's found its device, so that's great. Now we're into our signal quality check program. This is a really simple piece of code that we've implemented that does a standard deviation based signal quality check. So it's minimal, but it works reasonably well. So what it's going to do is it runs in 5-second blocks and just checks how the signal is for those 5 seconds, then tells you on the screen. I've not got it on my head right now, so it's telling us, and this is what these crosses here mean, that the signal is bad, and that's good, right? Because if you got good signal when you didn't have something on your head, then probably your signal quality check is not working well. So our signal quality check program will run basically every 5 seconds. It'll give you another little printout, and then it'll pause after 5 and give you kind of a status report, and then ask you if you want to stop or if you want to keep going. So we're going to keep going, and I'll actually put it on my head, and we'll see how the signal quality check works. So I'm going to put this thing on my head, and we'll start getting EEG data, and then what we're aiming for is for these 4 crosses here to become 4 ticks. And the ticks will mean that we've got good signal and we're good to go. Okay, so let me do that. When you're using a Muse, just so we know, so you basically extend it long, pop it on the front, pull it back tight, get it behind your ears so your ears stick out like an elf, and then tighten it, so you kind of like pull it back with your thumbs and your fingers there. And I'm talking a lot, which means that the signal's not going to be so good. So I'm going to be quiet in a second, and I'm going to aim to kind of hit a little kind of Zen state. But specifically, I'm going to stop talking because the signal is going to not be good when there's the muscle artifacts from my mouth in particular. So John, shut up for a second. Okay, so that was good. Let's just review what happened in the last 2 steps there. So we went through 2 sets of the 5, so it pauses after every 5 and just kind of reviews. It says you still had 1 bad channel after 5 tries. Then it'll keep going. You might need to press enter again, but it'll keep going. And then I was still and did a good job, and my brain did a good job, and our signal quality got into the good mode. Okay, so we got tick for all 4 channels, and we got that 2 times in a row. come back here 2 times in a row, so da and da. And then, so what the signal quality check program will do is, like, when it sees good signal 2 times in a row, it'll give you this message: all good, you can proceed on to data collection. Now, consider this a heuristic, as in, you may find, so the bounds, we can give you information as to, like, exactly what the boundaries are that what we've decided are the standard deviation thresholds that correspond to good signal quality. It's 18 for the Muse. That's just an empirically determined number. So, for example, like, if I was getting, which I was actually just earlier on, like, I was getting 19 here, right? This is just outside of the bound of our classification of good signal. But honestly, like, if I was getting that constantly for 30 seconds or so of running signal quality check, I'd just go with that and proceed. So what we don't want is for you to be sat here for an hour just trying to get 4 ticks on here. That's not the point. But the point is for you to be able to see if one of your channels is giving you, say, standard deviation. For Muse, the standard deviation values vary a bit per devices because they measure slightly different quantities. But if in this case, if I was getting like 200, then I'd know that it's like not touching the head or whatever. It's like there's no good signal coming from there. So this is your first pass for making sure that data is looking okay for you to proceed. And we definitely want you to try and do what you can in the setup phase to make sure that your signal quality check is working well. But again, if you have roughly good, like 3 out of 4 or 8 out of 9 in other systems, and you're just a little bit away from the threshold range for, say, one of the channels, then let's just say, and it's not budging, then you're good to proceed. Okay, so that's the function of this in how we're running this experiment. Now, let me just quickly show you a similar thing for the OpenBCI. I'm going to take this thing off and turn it off because I'm done with that for now, because it's a similar process, but 1 or 2 other things to know about OpenBCI. I mean, first thing is the NTCS is a partnership with OpenBCI, so we love OpenBCI gear, and we want you guys to do well with these systems and have fun with them. So I want to make sure I give you kind of all of the information I can. I need a dongle, which is just over here. Yep. Okay, so this is the OpenBCI Cyton Ultra Cortex. So the Ultra Cortex bit is the frame. The Cyton is the board, which I've attached on with masking tape there because I've been putting these things together often, but you'd screw this in before your full setup. But the main thing is the Cyton is the board, so that's the EEG, and then these blue things are the channels, kind of interesting dry electrodes. They have these spiky kind of comb style dry electrodes in some cases, and smooth ones for different parts like the front of the head. So Cyton, okay, goes on the head, grounds and reference on the earlobes, these little things like so. I'm not going to stick this on my head, but you get the gist. Maybe I'll just perch it there. It'll just be on screen a little bit. No, I can't perch it there with that, and then be able to get access to the keyboard. But I'm gonna hold it up in a second. So the first thing you want to do when you're using your OpenBCI is to turn it on, which is like so, a little button there, green, blue light. Okay, good. And you're going to want to be using, well, if you're using the Bluetooth dongle with the OpenBCI Cyton, which is definitely recommended, although there are other options, Wi-Fi Shield and the Ganglion as well, but this is probably what you want to be doing. That's a little Bluetooth dongle. So there's a little, actually, kind of, board, little chip board here, but it's a USB. So that's going to go into my laptop, which I'm going to do right now. Okay, and I'll get a little blue light there telling me that that's on. So my my Cyton is on, my Bluetooth dongle is in, so I'm good to do a signal quality check again. Now, as we saw, it's the same command, and I said ed, so EEG device, but this time it's the Cyton. It's not the Muse. So in that case, we just type Cyton. That's that's the name of the board, what eeg-notebooks will do then is it'll give you one more question, which is something that you need to know about when you're using OpenBCI with BrainFlow in general, is what's the serial port? Because it's a USB dongle, it kind of is seen as a serial port rather than through the native Bluetooth. So you just need to confirm that it's found the right serial port. I happen to know. It's easy to check. In fact, I can do that for you right now. If you do devices, which is something that you do want to do, device manager in Windows, and take a look at your ports, your COM ports. Make sure your ports comport with your expectations. So USB serial port here, so I can see that it's COM3. That's sometimes you'll see. So the number is what will vary. Sometimes in Windows anyway. Sometimes it'll be COM10. Sometimes it'll be whatever COM8. That depends entirely on your machine. We try to kind of detect it automatically, but depending on what else you have plugged in and other things, we might not catch the right one, or we might see several. So if there's like 3 things plugged in, then I'd need to know which one is my OpenBCI in order to give the right answer to what the command line is asking me for here. In this case, I've only got one option, so that's all good. So I know it's port 0. So I enter that. I think I waited too long there, so I'm going to do that again. And so this is BrainFlow running in the background. BrainFlow is a kind of magical Python library that's come along in the last few years that is fantastic because the BrainFlow folks, shout out to Andre, BrainFlow folks have come up with a library that gives you a uniform interface to multiple EEG devices, which is fantastic. It allows something like eeg-notebooks to be a pluralist piece of software rather than having to spend all our time thinking about like a custom solution for every single device in terms of how to get the data off them. So we've got our streaming going for our Cyton. So Cyton, I've got 8 channels in this, and you can see them lined up there, and you can see that they're not giving us ticks, and they shouldn't be giving us ticks, but we've got 1 tick there. The signal rate, the range is different. So again, we've got to have an empirically determined standard deviation range that will be different for different devices, and so just kind of pay attention. Don't assume that it's going to be the same thresholds for your Muse and for your OpenBCI. So naturally, and it fluctuates a bit, especially with the dry system. With the non-active system. So in any case, same process. So you're gonna pop your OpenBCI in your head and run through the signal quality check. And again, what we're looking for is a good show across most of the channels, and for you to be within or near the range. And that's something that you're going to do, particularly you're going to do at the start of the experiment. So we'll talk about the experiment in general in a little bit, but this is your signal quality check process. And it's quite quick to do, right? We've been talking about it for a little while now, but if you think about it, it's just like load the thing up, EGMB check sigqual, stick it on the head, bam, 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 should be kind of 2 minutes or so when you have it nailed down. Okay, so I'm going to abandon that now. Just Control-C to abort that. And we'll move on to the experiment, which is the exciting bit, the most exciting bit.